of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and, of course, iHeartRadio. Those of you who have a Roku TV box, we've also got a Roku TV channel. You can watch us on Roku TV, and you can go to the timeforhemp.com website and find the Roku code that you put into your Roku box to enjoy us and share us with your friends. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday on the big broadcast, and on Wednesday we put a spotlight sometimes on what's going on in the Law Enforcement Against Prohibition organization. With that said, I am going to pass this joint conversation over to my joint host and our joint guest today here on the big joint broadcast on Time for Hemp. Your Honor?
Casper, good morning. Dian, Goldstein, as always, a true pleasure. I'm going to take just a quick second and let you know what's going on the ground in Colorado. Dian, can I take a minute here?
You can take as long as you want.
We don't have that long. But I'll keep
That's
it
funny.
Briefly. Most important things. As you all know, and I'm not speaking as a Bar Association rep, I'm speaking as an individual, the State Bar Association, our Colorado Bar Association, has approved at the Board of Governors level a cannabis law committee. A cannabis law committee put together by the State Bar Association, sanctioned by them. It is not lobbying, legislating, legalizing. It is lawyers like real estate lawyers who want to know what to tell their clients who own huge warehouses, which somebody wants to pay really high rent for, to grow marijuana, and they have all the paperwork. These lawyers want to know what to do. And there are a smattering of the criminal types, the criminal defense attorneys and related, but it's for our 13,000 members, and the committee reflects it. I think we're in the range of 70 people now.
Wow.
That are on the committee, and our meetings, live bodies in Denver, have been running a dozen and a half people. It is huge. Michigan, when I saw that it could happen here, and I'll take credit, it was my idea. I brought it to the bar. Then my heroes at the bar, including, let me not get too far into the bar. They don't like that, and I understand. My point is, I reached out to people I know, and because of the internet, I know people everywhere. I reached out. I said, why don't you try this? Michigan already is up and running. We have people in 50 states pushing their bar associations to do the same thing. On the local front, we are seeing more and more cities, more and more counties getting more and more involved in either drafting regulations and imposing them on the businesses if they're permitting them, looking at the issues of marijuana clubs, marijuana B&Bs, and the like, and trying to figure out what to do. In Boulder, as of, I believe, today, new regulations, hopefully improved, I think they are, regulations just went into place. And in the few seconds I could give to the article so far today, I did see something that to a defense attorney and to all of us is huge. When there is an allegation of a violation of the regulations, instead of one person saying, okay, you're closed, there is now a right to some limited due process, a hearing, people listening, people looking at it, a chance to present your side if there's an allegation of a problem. That's huge. I can't speak to what else is in there. And my final quickie is this. Again, as a criminal defense attorney, what I am seeing are such dramatic differences in the same case. 6.5 pounds of pot in one county is just not that interesting to them because it might be gray market. And you go into a county 50 miles away, and we have a DA asking for prison.
Correct.
So there's never a dull moment. I suppose that's part of what keeps me so invigorated and enthused, besides loving my work. Dian, let's talk about you. Dian Goldstein, all of our regular listeners know you. Can I trouble you for the 30-second background for those that are newer to Time for Hemp?
Sure. So the 30-second pitch is I'm a speaker and a board member for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. I spent almost 22 years working in a California law enforcement agency where I worked everything from investigations and ended up leaving as a lieutenant in charge of a fairly large patrol bureau, community-based policing, traffic. And so I've run the gamut, including supervising our special investigations unit, which was the narcotics team, to look at all aspects of how policing works, doesn't work, and what we can do to change it. So I spent almost 22 years working for a California law enforcement agency where I started out as a patrol officer and retired as a lieutenant. And in between is I worked gangs, our special investigations unit that was a career criminal narcotics unit, in addition to starting, community-based policing programs like our school resource officer program. And so because of my work in law enforcement, I ended up coming to Law Enforcement Against Prohibition during the 2010 Proposition 19 campaign, and currently I'm both a speaker as well as a member of the board of directors.
And what would you say? This is a 2-3 hour a week kind of an effort, right?
Oh yeah, right. So I'm fortunate that I work for my husband, and he so lovingly supports my activism. So I probably pretty much between grad school, which I just started, and my work with LEAP, I'm probably putting in at least 40 hours a week.
On this effort?
Absolutely.
And your home state, your state that you're based in right now, does that continue to be?
Well, California is really interesting in the sense that we have our own issues going on right now relative to cannabis regulation. And so I am doing a bunch of work there, but really I'm concentrating much more so on total criminal justice reform. For LEAP, as much as we love you pot people, because we do, it is just a small portion of what we do.
Let's be clear about that. It's such a fundamental, important thing. LEAP, and you tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm hesitant to ever speak for anyone else. My understanding, there we go, is that while LEAP is thrilled to see the legalization, medical, private use, personal adult decisions, it is critical, it is crucial that we not lose track, and we being the all-inclusive we, that we do not lose track of the mission statement of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. The issue is not legalized pot. That is an important piece of it. It's a step. But the big picture is the drugs, prohibition doesn't work. We all know prohibition simply doesn't work. And what we former and current law enforcement people, former judges, prosecutors, prison wardens, and the list goes on of speakers, and all of you should join as supporters at leap.cc, leap.cc. Join the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Show the numbers. It matters. But getting back to my point, aren't you glad we invited you on, Dian? I apologize.
Absolutely.
Big picture is prohibition doesn't work, whether it's prohibition of marijuana or prohibition of heroin or prohibition of methamphetamine or prohibition of all those nasty words. The fact is, whether they're illegal or illicit, they are what they are. And right now, being illegal, we have no regulation, no control, no cash through the system, and we have turned a health problem into a planet-wide, underground, illegal, murderous business by keeping it illegal and believing in prohibition. So we at Leap do not want to be diverted by the marijuana successes and lose track of the bigger picture. I'm done interrupting for 30 seconds at least, I promise.
No, yeah, you know what, Lenny? It's, I think it's one of those situations that it's a very nuanced and complicated discussion that we need to have about the total worldview. So I recently read a really, really good article in the Washington Post that talked about how the illicit market, both internationally and in the United States, fuels violence. And so, for example, economists estimate that the illicit international drug market, use, possession, sales, the whole bit, is probably worth roughly over $330 billion. The United States market on its own is $100 billion. We've been battling this total overall drug war in an effort to deter drug use and prevent drugs from entering the United States, and it has been an absolute and total abject failure.
Did I hear you correctly? 100 billion with a B, billion dollars is the U.S. market for underground illegal drugs.
Correct. You have heard me.
Okay, so there's $100 billion industry, and let's keep track. Here in Colorado, we were very happy about collecting more tax revenue than alcohol since January, if you can believe that. $60 million, I believe, as of last month. Let's keep track of the big picture. That was $60 million in tax revenue, a wonderful thing. The big picture, what Dian is saying. We are looking at $100 billion that basically we and our friends and relatives, like it or not, are investing in the underground,
Correct.
In killing. We are buying automatic weapons to be used to shoot people, and we're funding it to the tune of $100 billion.
Correct.
Well, pardon my language, but FCC be damned. That's just stupid.
It is stupid. It's crazy, and that's the thing that people don't understand is that there is no amount of abstinence-only education or supply-side interdiction efforts, whether it's in a free market society like the United States or in places like Iran, who executes thousands of people who use or sell drugs. So in the most repressive societies and in the most free societies, people are going to access drugs, whether they're legal or illegal, to alter their minds. And so what we have to do is start working from this from a public health perspective and how best to deal with the issue. And criminalizing it doesn't work.
Have we ever seen somebody not able to get the drug they wanted? If somebody wants heroin, they can't get it always within the hour that they want it. But has there ever been, and you were in law enforcement for a long time and heard about and knew and saw about and were part of drug availability. Has drug availability ever particularly been an issue?
No, not ever. No. Yeah, and it's funny because, today I'll be going down to a university down in San Diego, and it's really Alliant University I'm going to be speaking to their grads and their grad school program, and it again, I graduated in 1979. Lenny, I think you're about my age. Casper, I know you're about my age, maybe a little bit older. And
you're a child. I was out of law school in 75.
So when I was in high school, every drug was widely available. We may have called them different things. I mean, in high school, I had access to, if I wanted it, to cocaine. We had Quaaludes and Doors and Fours and methamphetamine, Benzies, the little white pills versus methamphetamine. Marijuana was like a no-brainer. You can just go back behind our library and obtain it. And people were actively smoking pot and cigarettes on campus. And, so it was still harder for us to get alcohol because we had to co-opt a parent, do something illegal like create fake IDs, or steal from our parents' locked liquor cabinets. But we could be on our high school campus with $10 and score anything we wanted.
Yeah, that was true for me as well, back in a little funky town called Muncie, Indiana, in the heart of the Midwest. In the 10th grade, I was being able to locate very good marijuana at the time, LSD, mescaline, mushrooms, and I was one of those kids in our high school that your parents said to stay away from, which I guess is no surprise that when I grew up, I turned out to be a professional marijuana activist, letting the whole world know how important it is to take time for hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
She hates her job, loves her kids, bored with her husband, tired of the same old list of things to do. So when the to-dos have all been done, she sits down at the kitchen table, rolls herself a fat one. Smoke so sweet fills the air. She maybe ought to crack a window. All she can do is stare at the paint that's been peeling off of the walls. A couple of tokes of her troubles don't seem all that tall. You know life will let you down. Love will leave you lonely. Sometimes the only way to get by is to get high. She laughs out loud at who she used to be. The girl who'd look down on the woman smoking weed in her kitchen. misses them younger days, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses instead of this purple haze. But you know life will let you down, love will leave you lonely. Sometimes the only way to get by is to get high. So she tucks her kids in at night, kisses her husband, turns off the light, talks to God, says, Lord, help me accept what I can't change. But until I learn to do that, thanks for the Mary Jane. 'Cause you know life will let you down, love's gonna leave you alone. Sometimes the only way to get by is to get high. Yeah, sometimes the only way to get by is to get high.
Yeah, sometimes the only way to get by is to get high. I can tell you that when I watch the Democrats and the Republicans have their own little pissing contest, they call those debates, I have to get high. I can tell you that when I see Congress come together as a body, I have to get high. And I can certainly tell you almost any time the president speaks to the nation, oh my God, I got to get high. So that's what helps me. I consider marijuana my medical assistance when it comes to dealing with congressitis. With that said, I am going to pass this conversation back to my joint host and our joint guest. And I can tell you, I am so excited about all the great laws that are in force now. You can smoke it for recreational purposes in Oregon, medical marijuana left and right, industrial hemp being planted. Oh my gosh, I can certainly tell you we got taxes up and arrests down. That's got to be fantastic, right, y'all?
Well, it is in certain places, but the most recent FBI Uniform Crime Report stats just came out, and we've seen a slight uptick actually in marijuana possession arrests and citations across the country. So, for example, last year I think we arrested or cited 693 folks for marijuana, 80% of those were for simple possession. This year, we're back up over 701,000. And so last year, for example, we would arrest or cite someone for sales or possession of marijuana every 51 seconds. It's dropped down to every 45 seconds now. So despite the significant gains that we're making across other portions outside of places like Oregon or maybe Alaska and Colorado, we're continuing to see marijuana being used by law enforcement as a way to beef up stats, to continue the war on drugs.
Diane, interesting. I have to wonder two things. One, we are in a transition period. What transition means is if you graph it all, you don't get smooth curves, you don't get straight lines. You get up and down, and the stuff that only statisticians can put into math that I wouldn't understand, and I'm good at that. My point is this. With it being legal in a mix of states, with so many people able to purchase legally, and in all fairness, with the gray market, are we seeing the uptick because law enforcement in states where it is illegal are looking for it more? And factually, with the smuggling, with the tourists taking some back, there's more there to find. So we're seeing, I like to think, well, we've won the war, at least the pot part, and now we need to win the peace. I wonder if, in part, we're seeing that. And an article I saw yesterday said that at University of Colorado, I believe that marijuana possession offenses are down 47%.
It's fabulous.
Down, 47%. So something's going on here, and we don't know what it is, do we, Mr. Jones?
Well, you know what? I think it's a combination of different things, like you stated. But I also there's a couple things. Number one, we haven't won the war. Okay, I think we've won a huge, because again, I'm going to look at the macro view. Maybe we've won the war on marijuana prohibition, but I don't think so. Okay, we are winning huge, major battles and skirmishes. So, for example, is I think this week or a few days ago, what we had is Lynette Shaw, who was the owner of Marin Alliance for Women, was the first dispensary in California, and Department of Justice came after her in a huge, huge fashion. She didn't go to jail, but they forced her to shut down her dispensary. Yesterday, a federal judge ruled that the Department of Justice was breaking the law by trying to shut down state legal medical marijuana dispensaries in California. So we've been fighting this battle for... Yeah?
Diane, I apologize for interrupting. The thing that you just said, in my mind, is so huge that I'm interrupting you and asking you to not go over that one as quickly as the others, if I'm seeing it right. The piece that the federal judge ruling on what was going on, and now I'll shut up again. Sorry.
Well, no. So it's huge. So I think that, you know, I'm not going to say we won the war on marijuana until marijuana has been either completely decriminalized to an infraction level across every state, that states are allowed to basically make their own laws relative to any drugs, not just marijuana, like this case law is going to support. This is precedent setting. But the problem is what people don't realize is it was based on the financial rider that was placed into congressional spending, where Rohrabacher and Farr and Blumauer and some, you know, phenomenal bipartisan legislators came together and said, respect the states' rights to implement their own medical marijuana laws, and they took money away from the DEA. And what the DEA and Department of Justice did, which was very, very critical, is they interpreted it to mean that they just couldn't go after state legislators or, you know, police officers or those types of folks who were kind of like supporting the implementation of this, but that they were allowed to go after patients or dispensary owners. And this case basically says, get out of the state's business. So it's a huge, huge case, but the rider expires December 15th. And so we have to be really careful that they're going to have to vote on that rider again like they have the last couple years. So we haven't won the war, Lenny. We haven't won the war, Casper, but we are winning some really, really critical battles. So, you know, I think we're going to step in the right direction. I think it's very complex and very complicated, Lenny, just like you said, as you have states on the borders of states that are either medical marijuana states or adult consumption states, because I don't like to say recreational. And what you're seeing is law enforcement outside of those states are using this as a way to cherry pick to prevent reform coming into their own states, because now they're saying, oh, look at all, you know, all the issues and all the crime problems that we're having.
That was a fantastic way to lay it out. Thank you. And you know what? I'm convinced. I think the winning the war and now need to win the peace is good rhetoric. But I think your perspective historically really is more accurate. We won a good battle. We've won a bunch of good battles. It occurs to me as a constitutional law attorney in ways, with the federal court saying to a federal agency, you cannot do something in relation to a specific state pot activity. What they are also saying, and legally, this is, again, huge. What they are saying, this judge is saying is, I have, as a federal court judge, the power to say yes or no over a state marijuana dispensary. That's unbelievable. It's the opposite of Marbury Madison, which is a whole show in itself, where the court said, we could do that, but we're not going to. Now,
Correct.
The fact is, if they did it, they couldn't have enforced it. But they took the power and didn't act. It was brilliant. In a way, they've done the same thing here. We could say it, but we're not. But we could. Recognition by the feds in a federal court that we are a legally cognizable entity. Oh, that was a good sentence. Whoa. And it's true. It's true. Diane, let me change the subject for a second. From your end, is the GLAD school something I should be asking about?
What's the GLAD school? My gosh, there's something that I had
My apologies, I misheard you. What else are you currently seeing that we should be paying attention to?
Grad school, graduate school, not GLAD school. Okay.
Oh.
We're both getting old,
Lenny. I didn't say.
I'm in grad school, graduate school. As I'm doing much more criminal justice reform, not just drug policy reform, because, I think all of us can say that have been with LEAP for a long time, is the drug war is like the root of all evil relative to every issue that we can touch across our community, whether it's mass incarceration, law enforcement reform, public health policies, education, school-to-prison pipeline, human rights, civil rights. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so one of the things that I have to really become much better at is really speaking to the theoretical foundation and the policy pieces that are associated to why we as a culture adopt certain laws and not others. And it is very, very fascinating when you start talking about theoretical foundation, social control, stigmatization of drug users. Is it really racism? It's all complicated, and we can go back, or at least I truly believe is that one of the big pieces that has been critically missing, and I see it sitting in grad school with other law enforcement officers who want to promote, and other, kids who've just graduated, and other people that are working in the court system or social workers. Nobody understands the roots of our drug laws. And so what I'm hoping, I'm in a 2-year process with this cohort of like 50 plus students and professionals that I'm doing everything I can to educate them about the failure of the drug war and how it ties into all the issues that we're working at. So it's been kind of fun because I'm getting a lot of pushback from the active duty police officers that are there, yet I still get support from them in some aspects. So I need the policy piece to go into legislatures when I testify and into other places to really talk about not just why the system has failed, but what we can do to fix it. So I've had the one part down. I now need to develop how we fix the issues.
I understand that because there's issues here. I'm from Indiana. We say issues wrong. We say fish is wrong too. But I got issues here that we got to fix, and we can't fix those issues without working on our budget. And that can only happen if we stop and take a commercial break here at Time for Hemp. Listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.
your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Well, now, chocolate cake makes my poor stomach ache, and all those pills are too much for me to take. I don't like cocaine 'cause it makes me all uptight, but coffee and reefer makes me feel alright. Crystal meth will make you high, and it's too...
Coffee and reefer does make me feel all right. It's a great way to start the day, I must say. Hey, I thought you... I bet you kids thought that rap was invented 2 years ago. Surprise! Anyway, with that said, we are wrapping up this hour of broadcasting here on Time for Hemp. I do want to remind you we are a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week broadcasting experience. We've got all the apps you need to keep up to date with us on our timeforhemp.com website. We are on iHeartRadio, and iHeartRadio is also on the Roku network. So not only can you find the Time for Hemp TV broadcasting network on Roku now, you can also find all your favorite iHeart channels on Roku, along with Time for Hemp. With that said, I am passing this joint chat back to my joint friends here on the joint broadcast on Time for Hemp. Your Honor, Dian?
Dian, on grad school, it strikes me that as you study these things at the grad school level, understanding them on that deeper, more complex level is a tool that will allow you to even more effectively say it directly, correctly, honestly, at a level everyone can understand. With the law enforcement, with the LEOs, the seed has been planted. So when they see it on the streets, as you know they will, they'll be thinking, God damn, if this isn't what Dian said, this, wow. Speaking of what's going on now, what's hot, I read there's something going on in D.C.
So I think we're at an amazing point in drug policy reform. So quite clearly, I want to say that Casper, it has been grassroots activists that have basically used marijuana as this spear to drive politicians and law enforcement to talk about the inequities of mass incarceration. But it hasn't just been marijuana because, we can all talk about the issues of, I watched the debates. Hillary and Bernie were wrong when they had the wrong soundbite when they talked about marijuana, because really from marijuana, yes, we have a small percentage of our people that are in prison or in jail or have been and should never have been. But in comparison to all the other drugs, it's a small percentage. But what they should have talked about was the collateral consequences of a drug conviction, whether it's marijuana or it's cocaine or something else. And so they had the right thought, but the wrong soundbite, because what's happening from a political perspective is people like Kevin Sabet and all these prohibitionists are saying, the presidential candidates are wrong. There's nobody in jail or very few people in jail relative to marijuana. I'm not minimizing the amount of people that have spent time in prison or are currently in prison for sales and cultivation or have gone back to prison because of dirty urine testing. Don't get me wrong in any way, shape, or form, but I think from a social justice standpoint, we have to continue to point out it's convictions you can never get over, unlike maybe substance abuse issues, okay? And then we also have...
You're saying
sorry,
there's the tip of the iceberg. You're saying the pot piece is the tip of the iceberg when
Correct.
we look at people in jail for drug possession.
Correct. So it allows us to focus on the social injustice relative to the convictions, and then we can start taking the broader look at exactly who is in jail. And then you start looking at the people who are in there for cocaine and methamphetamine or just for simple possession. And so one of the things that's happened is our America's love of opioid prescriptions has led to an increase in the heroin use because, of course, we never treat anything from a public health perspective. We just want to incarcerate everybody. And we're seeing the significant amount of deaths in our suburban communities, which again shows the inequities of our social justice system because frankly, we haven't cared about heroin until white suburban moms' kids started going to jail or dying from it. And I've heard active duty law enforcement officers say that. This wasn't an issue if it was an inner city community issue. We didn't care. Now all of a sudden, you know, and they're upset about it because they've been talking about it from a public health perspective. But today launched a very interesting organization, and it's called Law Enforcement Leaders to Reduce Crime and Incarceration. And Neil Franklin, LEAP's executive director, is on one of the founding members' lists. So we know that LEAP's message, although maybe not fully supported by all these law enforcement leaders, is being heard because they agree in large concepts about some of the issues that we've been talking about, which includes mass incarceration and the impact of the drug war on relationship between law enforcement and the communities they serve. So they have basically, and I'm looking at their, you know, their core mission and what they want to talk about, and they're talking about all the same things that we've been talking about for the last 5 years. And they finally have recognized that mass incarceration, that research and studies show that the overuse of prisons have little crime control effects and that we'd be better off doing public health policies. Now, they're not saying they want to legalize drugs, and I'm not even certain they're saying they want to decriminalize drugs. And what I don't personally believe in, but I'm willing to work with them from an education standpoint, is they want to go back more towards a, you know, coercive drug court treatment. But we have to also educate them about, although drug courts, if used properly, would be beneficial, but the way currently our drug courts are used is they cherry pick people who, for the first time, get caught with heroin or LSD, and then they force them into drug court, and they don't allow people who really need drug court are people who have broken into cars or, you know, doing petty thefts in order to support their chronic substance abuse habit. But I believe that down the road, what you are going to see is you're going to see the acceptance by law enforcement of things like the Switzerland model of heroin-assisted treatment, where now, if you're a heroin addict, it's a public health issue unless you commit other crimes, okay? But if you're a heroin addict, it's a matter between you and your doctor, and that the government itself gives you a prescription to obtain heroin, and you go to a safe injection facility, and your use of heroin is a public health matter and not a criminal matter. And they have seen a dramatic drop in property crimes, like somewhere over 60 to 70% in Switzerland, because people aren't breaking into your house or into your cars or taking property from stores in order to support their heroin habit. It's smart on crime versus tough on crime policies.
The reason, I believe
it is reason. Yeah,
So we have this new group. We have a seat at the table. Is anyone listening? Is anyone noticing that this new group exists?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. They did a big press release today, and what you have to understand is they have police chiefs from the largest police organizations across our country. Charlie Beck from LAPD, Bratton from New York. You have, from King County, you have Sheriff Urquhart. You have Chicago Police Commissioner. You have the Baltimore Police Commissioner. You have DAs. And so we know that we have a seat at the table, and people clearly get the link between the enforcement of our drug laws from a criminal matter and mass incarceration, and we're having an impact. So you have... Urquhart's very supportive. King County Sheriff, very, very supportive of what Washington has done. You have other police leaders that are saying, yeah, you know what? The appropriate regulatory model for marijuana has actually been beneficial to law enforcement. And so I think that marijuana is going to continue to show that we can regulate these substances that have been criminalized based on ideology, and instead we should develop a policy based on science and research.
I am almost speechless. Let me put it this way. Dian Goldstein, I hope you feel proud. You have earned it. But for us, but for LEAP, they wouldn't be there.
That's right. LEAP is, it's funny, Lenny, because you've been with LEAP longer than I have. And even 5 years ago when I started, literally this October is my 5-year anniversary with volunteering for LEAP. And 5 years ago, I felt like our message was a little bit of an outlier position, not around marijuana, but at least around other drugs. Today, our position is no longer an outlier position. It is a mainstream policy discussion on how better to govern our society and what the role of the criminal justice system and law enforcement specifically is in it.
It's funny, my reaction was completely personally 100% intellectual, 0% emotional. I heard the pitch, heard the explanation, and I said, oh, okay, well, that's obviously right. What's next?
Yeah. But you're also an attorney, though. I mean, I think attorneys are much more geared towards very critical, analytical, analysis of words simply based on the rule of law. But, one of the things that I think we need to talk about, which is part of the law issue, is, the law as we practice is so adversarial that it impacts procedural justice. And what we see, at least at the criminal justice level, it's not about what's fair. And so one of the things that law enforcement is talking about moving is the shift to procedural justice, where our constituents, in order to understand the system, have to believe that the system is fair. And so we need to take the politics out of the criminal justice system, where you have sound bites like prosecutors getting elected simply because of conviction rates. That's not what the system was ever set up to be.
I couldn't have said it better. I'll add this to it. When a potential client sits down in my office, and many people see it as black and white, you win or you lose. One of the things I have to communicate, or it's not a good client for me if I can't. Our goal, let's figure out what you really need, and let's look at what is fair. If you and I, Mr. Defendant, are fighting for what is right, what is fair, well, we should win. If we disagree on what's fair, let's talk about it. If something's fair, but oh, by the way, they screwed the search up and we can make it go away, cool. I'm fine with that. The police should do it right. They won't have those problems. It's not that hard. Get a warrant.
Yeah. Well, I think that the other issue is, Lenny, too, though, is, I'm also a cynic because I understand law enforcement training and the, alliance between prosecution and law enforcement. And we need to completely change our trainees to emphasize the constitutional mandates of our laws. And so you haven't, you used to be a prosecutor.
One night. 4 hours.
And so,
prosecutor, 4 hours.
Yeah,
Literally.
well, but if you had served longer, what you would know is that prosecutors teach cops how to undermine the Constitution.
Oh, I filled in for somebody for one night. I'm a former judge. But
Yes.
I prosecuted traffic tickets in the city of Lyons for one night, sitting in for a friend who asked me to do it. I will never prosecute again.
Yeah.
You talk about what's fair. The ethical rules in Colorado by which prosecutors specifically are bound says your job is to do fairness. That is your obligation as a prosecutor, to do what is fair. So all we're doing as defense attorneys, from my viewpoint, is making the prosecutors do what they're sworn to do. As long as they do that, I'm fine. Are there exceptions? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sworn to hold up Father Time's commitment to the hour, and we are down to it. This is a perfect time to give a shout out to your favorite URL and or organization, Dian.
So coming up, we have next month Drug Policy Alliance Reform Conference. For those that don't know about it, there's still time to attend. Every other year, it is, I call it my temple of drug policy reform. I go there and become revitalized. And I'm on a panel. I'm on a militarization of law enforcement panel with some rock star women, which is going to be great. And it's a great time to rejuvenate, because I know for me, I get really frustrated, 10 steps backwards, 12 steps forward, and it's we win some, we lose some, and I always walk out of there saying I need to continue doing whatever I can to do this work.
And Your Honor,
I always plug normal, NORML.org. I love leap.cc. I'll plug myself, L. Frieling, IE, at lfreeling.com. Why not? Time for hemp. We have a great time. We believe we present stuff that people want to and need to know, and which move us all along towards the end of Prohibition. Casper?
and I do want to remind people we are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a team of people who are dedicated to ending Prohibition. Our content is original and around the clock and easy to share with friends. You find all of the archives of your favorite host at the timeforhemp.com website, and they're all free to download and share with your friends. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio. Share us with your friends.
Break, another sign that the boomers are ruling this country. Barack Obama said this week that he's tried drugs, and it barely got a mention in the newspapers. But remember the uproar that cost Douglas Ginsburg his Supreme Court nomination over the disclosure that he smoked marijuana. And this from 1992.
When I was in England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
How did he know he didn't like it if he didn't inhale? I'm sorry, you can't go back to that. But by 2004, Democrats were falling all over each other to admit trying pot.
Which of you are ready to admit to having used marijuana in the past? And they want us to go around and ask each of you. Senator Kerry, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Senator Edwards?
Yes.
Senator Lieberman?
I have a reputation for giving unpopular answers at Democratic debates. I never use marijuana. Sorry.
Which brings us up to this week and Barack Obama.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
So what was that cameraman on?
He was inhaling, apparently.
Howard, what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's an accepted part of the culture now, and I think for one of the reasons why Barack Obama is so popular, especially among younger people, is that he seems so real. He seems to acknowledge the reality of things. It's kind of almost like a dog whistle kind of thing. Older people can't hear it. Younger people hear it. And that's one of the things that they hear. He seems to be willing to be honest, straight from the shoulder.
Is that like Ralph Nader always being for industrial hemp? Okay, that must be a dog whistle because I don't hear it.
There's nothing to say once you've said, yes, I inhaled. Then what? Nothing. The thing people can't stand is the lie.
Education and information. See what all the buzz is all about. It's time for hemp. It's time for hemp.